In this video, I'm going to be testing out pro controller settings and telling you guys which settings I prefer, but before we get into it, I would just like to remind you guys that subscribing is completely free and it helps out a ton. I'm getting really close to 10,000 subscribers, so if you happen to enjoy the content, I would appreciate if you subscribe with the notifications turned on to never miss any of my new videos. One last thing before I get into it, I would just like to credit Slash for this video idea. I will leave his YouTube link in the description if you guys want to check him out, and without wasting any of your time, let's get right into it. First settings I tried out was FaZe settings. His build mode sensitivity was 2.3, and for his editing sensitivity was 2.4. For his horizontal speed and vertical speed, he had both 47%. I also changed my ADS, horizontal and vertical sensitivity to 23% each. And going down to dead zones, he had both left and right stick on 5%. I decided to load into a trio zone war map code, test out his settings, and this is how I felt about them. To start off, I'm going to leave some background gameplay of each of the pro settings and showing off the little clips I hit with being on their settings. FaZe settings felt very fast at first, but as I played more and more zone war games, I got used to the feel of his dead zones and his movement. However, his ADS sensitivity seemed a little too high in my opinion. I didn't feel like my aim was locking onto the players, and the ADS sort of felt loose. As for the building and editing, the sensitivity felt very smooth and nice to use. I would definitely recommend a 2.4 for editing and 2.3 sensitivity that Sway uses. Overall, I think Sway settings are very easy to use and don't take too much time to get used to if you choose to use them. Going on to the next pro, we have Deyy settings. For his build mode sensitivity and editing sensitivity, he had them both at 1.9. Going down to look speed and horizontal and vertical, Deyy had these both at 43%, and for his ADS speeds, he had his look horizontal speed at 9% as well as his vertical speed, which was also at 9%, and for his left and right dead zones, he had them both at 10%. When I went into game, I noticed that his sensitivities felt a lot slower than I'm used to. It felt very hard to turn around in some of the fights that I was in, and my reaction time was a lot worse. For editing and building, it felt smooth, but again, it felt slow because I found myself getting beamed in more fights because my reaction time wasn't quick enough. As for my aim, you would think that my aim would be better considering that I'm on a lower sensitivity, but this is not the case. My movement felt sluggish, and even my aim felt off because it was hard to keep up with my reticle on the player when I was shooting because it couldn't keep up with the sensitivity. However, I do recommend a slower sensitivity compared to a higher sensitivity. If your sense is too high, you can't properly build and aim compared to a sensitivity that is slower and something to keep up with. So overall, I think Deyy settings is pretty good if you're looking for a lower sensitivity, but with that being said, I'm going to go on to the last pro controller setting. So we have CRR. His build sensitivity is at 2.3, and as far as editing mode sensitivity, he had his at 1.9. For his horizontal speed, he had his at 53%, and for his look vertical at 49%. For both of his ADS and horizontal vertical look sensitivities, he had these both at 15%. And lastly, his dead zones for the left and right stick, he had his left stick on 12% and his right stick on 7%. As you guys know, Deyy settings felt very slow, and Sway's sensitivity felt slower as well. This wasn't as bad as CRR's because his sensitivity was the fastest out of both of them. When I tell you guys that it was hard for me to edit with these settings, I mean it, because it was almost impossible to edit and even build with these settings because of how fast his dead zones were. The aiming was also extremely hard because his ADS felt higher and way harder to use compared to Sway's and Deyy's. If you are looking to switch to a faster sensitivity, I would recommend to use his settings. But I decided I wanted to try one more person's controller settings, and that person was Miro. FaZe actually used Miro settings in a video not too long ago, so I also wanted to try and copy his settings and play a few games with them. Starting with his building sensitivity, he had a 2.4 cents along with 2.3 for editing, and for his horizontal and look sensitivity, he had these both at 46%. For his ADS, he had these both at around 8 to 10. And for his dead zones, he had these both at around 8 to 9. When I jumped into a zone war game, these settings felt great compared to all the other settings that I had previously tried out. Building and editing felt great, and the ADS was great for aiming, and it was also really good for tracking and cranky 90s. I also want to mention that all these player settings that I used today were on linear, so it was nice because I use linear as well, and there wasn't a huge difference other than the look sensitivities. But if I had to choose one person's settings out of all the ones I tried out today, I would have to go with Sway settings. I would say the best thing from Sway settings is his editing and building sensitivity because it felt very smooth. It was also something that I was definitely used to. Second person I would recommend is Miro settings because it wasn't too high compared to CRR's, but it wasn't too slow like Deyy's. For third place, I would say Deyy just because I don't like playing on a high sensitivity. However, I was not a fan of the sense because it was hard to turn around on compared to Miro and Sway's. Finally, CRR settings were way too hard to play on because it was faster than I was used used to, and the tracking wasn't the best either, as well as the building and the editing. Let me know in the comments section if you guys have tried any of these pro settings, and let me know if you guys want a part 2 to the video, as I enjoy filming this one. Please leave a like down below and press the subscribe button if you guys want similar content like this. I hope you guys enjoy.